Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 13. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Good to be back with you guys, Steelers Nation, for this Wednesday. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Happy Wednesday. We're almost there.
Almost there. Yeah, we have football tomorrow, right? That is kickoff. Wow.
Yeah, I got to get my season predictions done real quick. Get those up on the site here so we can talk about them on Friday there. And obviously the Steelers open up on Monday. We're going to be able to sit around a little bit on Sunday and actually watch some football in Week 1. How great will that feel?
That'll be pretty nice. It'll be better, though, on Monday when I'm watching some Steelers football. That's what I can't wait for.
Absolutely. We got a little bit of breaking news to start the morning, don't we?
We do. Actually, we were just talking to Paul Dehner from The Athletic, who covers the Bengals, and during that interview, and that's how we'll start today's show, that Ryan Shazier has officially announced his retirement from the NFL. He sent out video over on Twitter just a little bit ago, about 10:30 a.m. Wednesday morning. He says, quote, "I'm here to let the world know I'm officially retiring from the game I love so much. It's been over 1,000 days since I got hurt on the field. To lose the game in a way I never envisioned has not been easy. When you play the game of football the way I did, you convince yourself you're Superman. But then that moment I got hurt, I stopped being Superman." He says he's going to take a step away from the game of football for a little bit, knows it's always there, but is excited to get on with some other things in life. And he says we'll be hearing from him soon. So Shazier, a great career, just unfortunately cut too short.
Yeah, it really is. Great, obviously former first-round draft pick coming out of Ohio State. Great athleticism. And, man, about the time he got injured, there was really coming into his own as a premier defensive inside linebacker in this league. I mean, some phenomenal. What he had one game with 15, 16 tackles in, or something along. I think that was against San Francisco or something. Really started coming into his own there, and then look, it shows you how quick. Not only the game of football but life in general. A real sobering aspect of and just an unfortunate example of how quickly people's lives can change in one instance there. So, guy, great Steeler. Obviously won't soon be forgotten at all there, and I think he's going to do real well in his life's work moving forward.
I agree 100%. I think he's going to just kill it no matter what he decides to do, what path he wants to take. And the important thing, while it's so sad to see his football career shortened and cut the way that it was, most important thing is that he's able to live a normal life. He's walking again. Remember there was a time where doctors didn't think he would walk again, and he proved them all wrong, and credit to him and his family and trainers and doctors and the community and the world at large for offering support. And those are things that he touched on in the videos that he posted announcing his retirement. So the fact that he can have a family, have a normal, happy life, and whatever he decides to do, I think he's going to do a great job at it.
Yeah, we don't know. Will he want to dabble in coaching going down, down the road? I don't know. Look, he's got a young family. This is still, obviously, even though it's happened a couple years ago, it's still kind of fresh still on him. And, he's young enough right now where he can live his life a little bit. Obviously got probably some good money in the bank and all, and very supportive wife, it looks like, and just, great family all the way around. So good for him to step away for a little bit. And we'll see what ends up being down the road. And I think the Steelers have said several times they're in full support in whatever Ryan wants to do, and I firmly believe that.
Yep, rooting for Ryan, no matter what path he wants to take. I think he'll do an awesome job, whatever he decides to do. So that is the breaking news of the day, and the breaking news that we had at the very end of Monday's show, and we weren't 100% sure, but we were pretty close. And then about 5 minutes after we ended Monday's show, which we recorded on Sunday night, we got the official news that Cam Heyward has signed a 4-year extension worth a little over $65 million that'll make him a Steeler for life. And so a deal that I know it seemed a little questionable at one point. Will it happen? Not, there were some comments made by agents and media reports that seemed to put it in doubt, but it always made the most sense for both sides to come together, get a deal done, and now Cam Heyward will be a Steeler for life.
Absolutely, and boy, it feels good to have that prediction go and look. To hear Cameron Heyward talk, 48 hours before signing that deal, he, it sounded like he wasn't sure it was going to happen. But look, I think the key point to me, I think, was when Kevin Colbert said, when you have two sides wanting to get something done, was it him or Rooney that said that? Either way, the final time that Rooney and Kevin Colbert both talked about the situation there, I got a lot better feeling that when you have two sides wanting to get a deal done, deals usually happen. All right, and we all know, or at least people should know how the Steelers like to do deals now with the guaranteed money. This wasn't Cameron Heyward's first rodeo when it comes to the mega deal. It seems like he gave a little bit in there. All along, I thought this deal was going to be around the $17 million new money average mark, especially after what the kid for the Packers just recently signed for. Heyward got close to that. The new money was $65.6 million, I do believe, on the 4 additional years there. It breaks down to a new money average of $16.4 million, which I believe puts Heyward still in that top 10 defensive lineman range. Highest earning over 30 player, I think, now in defensive lineman player in the league. On top of it, my numbers were pretty close, right around, he got 60. I had him down at maybe getting a $16 million signing bonus. He got a $17.5 million bonus. I had him right around, I think, $21 or $22 million in first year 2020 money. It looks like that money came in at $21.75 million. The only thing that there's still a few minor details that we're lacking here that should come out probably later today or hopefully by Friday at the latest for us to look at what exactly is going to go on in 2021 in this deal. But we've got enough, or at least we think we have enough information with the base salary, $1.5 million. I believe he's got a $2.75 million roster bonus that is due Friday for him, and then that's automatically turned into a signing bonus. So it looks like this deal is going to wind up, I think, clearing $3.95 million in 2020 salary cap space. You throw in the $3.85 million at the DeCastro restructure that we predicted would happen and will clear. So everything's kind of going to plan, I think, here, Alex. And once again, the big unknown at this point, although it's not that big of a deal because the Steelers are probably going to restructure Cameron Heyward in February or March, is what the impact and the cash flow is through the first 3 years of this deal. So long and short of it is he's going to end his career as a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And I know that you're still waiting for some information, as you just said, and you touched on it, but just ask the question directly. The numbers we know right now and the overall structure of the deal is pretty much in line with what would be reasonable to expect and what you expected, correct?
Yeah, the only thing is, and this is based on, and why Jerry Dulac threw out only the final 2 base salaries of the deal as opposed to the next, the 2021 and 2022. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't know the
I imagine if he knew, he would tweet that out.
I would hope so here, but judging by those numbers, and if those numbers are correct, then it looks like the cash flow leans a little heavier in the Steelers' favor after this year. I mean, look, to get him to sign a deal and with his age, you had to make sure that cash flow was over $20 million for this year. It is. It's right in line with what I figured. But when you look at subtracting out the total value minus the the known numbers, I think that leaves somewhere like between 2021 and 2022, the cash combined in those 2 years being around $21.5 million. That's not a lot when you kind of split it up. I kind of envision now, based on those numbers that are out there, that maybe Heyward's going to have like a little over 11 million take in cash in 2021 and maybe around 10 million or so in 2022. If so, that's kind of if indeed that's the case, and Cameron Heyward's cash flow through 2023 would be $43.25 million. That's a little lower than what I thought. I kind of envisioned that number being around $49-50 million, I think, right around in there. So, he's getting some up. If, and it's a big if because we don't know these exact numbers yet. It looks like his cash flow is in line for the first year, but it looks like Cameron Heyward kind of gave back a little bit when it came to cash flow in the second and third years. And that obviously would help the Steelers, especially, look, regardless of what his 2021 number is, Alex, if he stays healthy, he's playing okay, they're probably going to restructure that around February and March there. But at least the cash flow kind of takes it easy on the Steelers over the next 2 years if these numbers that are out there right now are correct.
And though there were only a handful of detractors I saw reacting to the news, and a very small percentage of people that didn't want to see this deal get done or thought it's too much money, just stop it. You're overthinking it way too much. This is a great player in the prime of his career. That's a great leader. The team wanted to keep him. He wanted to stay in Pittsburgh. This one made a whole lot of sense. And as Heyward pointed out, while he is 31 years old, he didn't really play his first 2 years of his career. He was part of the last of the old guard of where rookies just sat in Pittsburgh and they were depth guys and they waited their turn, and he waited behind Aaron Smith and Brett Kiesel. So while he is older and does have a good amount of mileage on him, he did not play those first 2 years, and that kind of makes him feel maybe a little bit younger than a normal 31 would be who played significant snaps since his rookie year.
He shows no signs of slowing down. And yeah, we all are aware what his birth certificate says and where he's at right now. But this guy the last 2 years has been dominant inside. Work ethic's incredible. There was just no way. One of the things I think that you and I were attaching to most in our confidence of this deal getting done was the fact that how can this defense move forward without him?
Right.
Especially in 2021. Now, it would be okay if you were sitting here and say, well, all right, they're okay cap-wise. They can just go ahead and throw the franchise tag on him in 2021, worst case scenario. But I think we all know that was going to be hard for them to accommodate that number there. So it made sense to get the deal done now. And look, if he gets injured, he gets injured. And his the detractors of this deal will come out of woodwork and say, I told you, over 30, should have never paid that guy that kind of money. But that's a risk that you take really with any NFL player. And as you said, the mileage because of the start of his career, he's probably more of a 28-year-old mileage, I guess, as opposed to, say, a 31-year-old mileage there. So, and for people that said this, that keep telling me that he wasn't going to get $16, $17, $18 million, it just wasn't going to happen that way. Players get market value or damn near close to it. End of story. No matter how much they don't want to leave a place or whatnot, market value. This isn't a charity case that we've got going on here. And in the long and short of it, Cam did give a little bit. I think, and you'd probably agree with me, his market value is probably about 17.4 to 17.8. in new money average. Well, his new money average came in at 16.4. So I chalked this up to Cameron Heyward giving the Steelers about a $1.2 million a year discount. And I think that's fine. I love the deal. And If he gets injured and people are able to come back and say, see, we told you, blah, 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 well, then so be it. That's the risk that you take. But this is the kind of deal that I expected to get done. And if his cash flow in the next 2 years ends up being what it looks like it is right now on paper, then even better, And if he plays out the next 3 or 4 years at a high level, at the level he's playing now, fantastic. Do I expect him to play all 5 years? I think it's pushing it a little bit right now, but I think he can get at least the next 3 out of them and probably 4.
There's always a risk. Anytime that you make a big decision, even a draft pick, signing somebody, whatever the case is, there's inherently a risk. But this is not, and this is obvious, but just to put it out there, this is not a Lamar Woodley situation where you're going to be concerned about Heyward's weight or work ethic or whatever the case is, whatever you want to attribute the way it didn't work out for Lamar Woodley. And so, yeah, a leader, a tone setter. I mean, he just leads by example in so many ways. And I think about, passing the torch from the way that John Mitchell taught it to Aaron Smith, to Brett Kiesel, the professional approach, the work ethic, the hustle to the football. I think the thing I love most about Cam Heyward, and there are so many traits about his game that are just so standout, but his hustle, his chase, his fanatical effort is second to none in the NFL, and that really resonates in the rest of that locker room.
Look, he gets it, man, and he learned from the best. He learned, it just goes to show you how this stuff is handed down. Brett Kiesel, Aaron Smith, the whole John Mitchell, and he plays exactly the way you would expect him to play. He developed into the defensive leader that you would hope he would the moment he was drafted. In my opinion, there is absolutely nothing wrong with this deal. Period. The player, nothing. And now let's just see if they can parlay this thing into a Super Bowl this year.
I hope so. And yeah, I think the way I would frame and sum up Cam Heyward is that he embodies every trait the Steelers organization has prided themselves on since the Chuck Noll era, and that's on and off the field. And I don't think there's a higher compliment I could give somebody than that, because Cam Heyward is what it means to be a Steeler, as cliche and trite as that may sound.
Yeah, not a sack guy, right? and look, one other thing about this too that people lose sight of when it comes to non-quarterbacks in the Steelers organization that get big deals. The Steelers still only do it one way, man. When is that going to change? Will it change in the near future? We'll see. But the Steelers are stingy with that guaranteed money. Now, on the flip side, they've got a long-standing history of paying out large percentage of their deals compared to other organizations. They might be accused of paying out less, quote unquote, fully guaranteed money, but in the long run, they usually pay out the deals.
Right. Which is why they can get away with the structure of these contracts.
Right, and a lot of times too, players are a little bit over the barrel because of the use of the franchise tag mechanism and all like that. The Steelers know how to work their side of it. So make no mistake about it. Probably when we get the final look at this thing, only 17. Well, really, it depends on what you want. I don't know what they're labeling that $2.7 something million roster bonus. I've seen it labeled as fully guaranteed. We'll see. That I think it's due on Friday there, but at a minimum, $17.5 million of this, the signing bonus, is what is fully guaranteed. If you want to add on the that 2.7 something million roster bonus that he's set to have as being fully guaranteed too, well then you're creeping up into the $20 million range. But even so, for a deal this size, that's technically a lower percentage of fully guaranteed money that you'd see maybe around the league there. So that's the player giving in a little bit too, whether or not you want to admit it.
And as we get some more information on the Heyward deal, we'll talk about it in future episodes. And just want to touch on it briefly because Jerry Dulac of the Post-Gazette made a passing reference at least to the Heyward extension potentially not being the last extension this team could hand out before the 14th kickoff against the Giants. We don't know who that player could be. We have a couple guesses of who it's more likely to be, whether that's Mike Hilton or maybe a Matt Filer. Still be surprised to see an extension happen, but I guess you cannot totally discount it right now.
No, the way they've cleared out some cap space and all recently, it is plausible, I guess, would
it's
be
not impossible, as you would say.
Right, exactly. It's not impossible, as I would like to say. Now, I wrote up an article, kind of on, on that tweet that Dulac put out there, and I listed all the names and of the guys, and I'm trying to pull it up right now so I don't forget any names here. But look, it's not going to be Bud Dupree. It can't be Bud Dupree because that deadline's already passed. All right. I think when you look at the soon-to-be unrestricted free agents, Alejandro Villanueva, who are the guys at the top of the list? Juju, Alejandro Villanueva, Mike Hilton, and I don't know, Cameron Sutton. Maybe you could throw his name on the list there. Okay, or Matt Filer. You would probably push for Matt Filer to probably be on that list as well too. I think realistically going through, how would you rank the probability of those 5 or 6 that of getting an extension in these next 5 days?
I would probably – I have a top 3. I think there's only 3 guys where I think there's even a chance that it happens, and I don't know exactly how I would rank them. I'd probably put Hilton number 1, but I just wonder how much he's going to cost, and you have Sutton with a similar skill set that's probably cheaper, and then you could flip him either way, but Filer, Villanueva, 2 and 3 was my top 3.
All right, so Juju wouldn't even be in there, right?
No, just because what is the incentive for Juju to do a deal right now when his value's been at its lowest point, when you have the potential bounce back season, right here, and assuming he plays well, Ben stays healthy, his numbers are going to spike, his value's going to increase. I mean, I don't see what the incentive is. There's a great incentive for the Steelers to want to do it if he can come in really below market value, but Juju knows there's a payday waiting for him after this season, so why do a deal now?
You're very correct, and people don't like to hear that side of the analysis.
All right, to the tango.
And I get it, fan favorite, blah, blah, blah. But, that's the reality of it. Unless Juju's willing to take an under market value deal right now, a severely undervalued market deal right now, I don't see how you can sign him long term. All right. Yeah, you could probably afford to cap the first year cap hit right now, but what's going to happen next year? And the Steelers just don't have a long history of second contracts being top of the market when it comes to wide receivers here. They just don't. And that's why I think Juju's eliminated from the list there. I'm with you, and I think I wrote as much in the article the other day. I think Hilton, if a deal, I think it's Hilton or Villanueva. End of story. Okay.
So not even a chance for Filer?
I don't even think there's a chance for Filer, Alex.
He's cheaper than Villanueva, though. He would be cheaper to get done.
Yeah, but what's the incentive on him right now if he can prove that he's a starting left guard in this league? I
think they're paying him for just what he's done as a starter already.
Yeah, I don't know how much what he's earning, the $3 million he's earning this year is fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. It's fair. It's not unreasonable.
But it's not fair enough for him to lock himself up long term at that amount.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame anybody for betting on themselves, but he may say, well, I feel like I have a chance to secure something long term now, and obviously this guy that's not made a lot of money in his career so far, undrafted free agent out of Bloomsburg. I don't know. I feel like he's just cheaper than Villanueva, and that would be the incentive or the reason to think that he may get the deal over someone like Villanueva.
And the counter argument I would use of why they wouldn't on the Steelers side is they just drafted Dotson. It looks like now David DeCastro is primed for an extension next year. On top of it, if you extended Filer now at obviously a higher range than what he's making now, he would have to start obviously next year.
Sure.
And where is he going to start?
Kick back out to right tackle.
It would have to be right tackle. It would absolutely have to.
Dotson doesn't have to start next season either. You hope that he could, and you like that he could, but it's not locked in.
It's not locked in, but I bet that's what that's their gamble, and they would just say that, okay, well, if we don't like what we see from him his rookie season, even if he doesn't play, throughout practices and all, they just go back into next year's draft and get him another guard.
Mm-hmm. Right, this is a 4th rounder we're talking about, a good one,
sure.
And I think one that would have gone higher had he been in the combine. This is still a 4th round pick ultimately.
Right, but I think when you add all that together, it makes sense not to have Filer on the list. Would be my argument.
All right. So Hilton, Villanueva, And what is your rationale for those two?
Well,
which I agree with.
Also here too. Let's say you did do Filer, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What would he want to sign for?
I don't know.
6 or 7 million?
It's so hard
at a minimum.
Yeah, I would say, $6 million probably as a floor. It's hard to peg though, because is he a tackle? Is he a guard? Trying to find the value for him. It's kind of a weird situation. I don't know a good figure. I just know it's less than what Villanueva would want.
Okay, and what's Villanueva scheduled to make in a base salary this year?
Like what, 5?
5 million.
Yeah, not much.
And people don't like to hear it. True or false? Alejandro Villanueva is top 10 left tackle in the league.
Yeah, that's true. Closer to 10, but yeah, he's top 10.
Right. People don't like to hear that for some reason, but it's true. And you've got him scheduled, and he's scheduled to make $5 million this season. That to me is a slap in the face. So, and it would be even more of a slap in the face if you re-upped a guy like Filer and his average yearly value comes in at higher than $5 billion. The Steelers just have, if you look back, Alex, they have a hierarchy. They follow that hierarchy there. They don't like to step on some people's toes when it comes to that kind of stuff. I don't think that's another reason why I don't think Sutton would get a deal over Hilton at this point here. So I think, and look, I got to admit, I'll be surprised if any extension happens. And I think I kind of sense that you would be in the same boat right now, despite what Dulac reported there. I'll still be surprised they get a deal done with anybody right now in these next 5 days. But if they do, I would envision it being either Villanueva or Hilton, because those guys already have high enough cap hits this year that you're probably not going to have too big of a shift in that. So you'd be able to accommodate whatever increase, if any, there would be on doing a deal for either one of those two. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Although Filer, I mean, how much of an increase could there be in a hypothetical deal at $6 million per year if he's making $3.5 on the tender right now? It probably would be negligible, maybe an increase slightly, but not by much.
Yeah, probably at max, probably about $2 million increase at max. And could they afford it right now with where they're? I think what did I say the other night? I think I have them around 11 million, right around in there, pending some official numbers and all like that. So they could obviously, they could afford somebody's cap charge to go up by a couple million, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think we're both in agreement that we don't expect any more extensions to happen. Could, not ruling it out, but just do not expect it as we sit here today.
I would be floored if it's Juju. Can we agree it's not going to be Connor?
It's not going to be Connor.
All right. I'd be floored if it's Juju. I'd be floored. Look, God bless. Look, I hope a lot of these guys end up, being retained. But I just don't see the feasibility of it happening when it comes to next year's cap situation. Now, obviously, if the floor, if the cap remains flat at 198.2, or obviously comes in higher, that's going to increase the chance of some of these guys get resigned. Just because I don't think this is going to happen doesn't mean I'm not rooting for something to turn out with these guys. People get this view all of a sudden. I think that I don't think the Steelers should re-sign Sutton, or I don't think they should re-sign Filer, or I don't think they should re-sign Juju. That's the farthest thing from the truth, Connor. But I'm the math guy, and not everybody likes the nerd, right?
Right.
Boy, that was awkward at the end there.
Sorry, I had my mic muted there for a second. Take a drink of water. The reality is that they're going to lose a lot of these guys. They hopefully can retain one or two of these players, but they're going to lose several of these key names that are so critical to the roster right now, and that's a reality that I think fans just have to come to grips with.
Yeah, I agree here, and maybe we'll have time to get a little bit more deeper into what else I wrote about the free agents here in a little bit here.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's stick with the offensive line, though, with some more reported news. Again, nothing 100% official. Mike Tomlin, in his first Tuesday presser yesterday, did not elaborate a lot on either of these next two topics we'll talk about, but according to, it's actually Adam Crowley of ESPN first to report the news that Zach Banner has won the right tackle job. Again, not confirmed by the team. The first depth chart, which we'll also talk about in a little bit, has him still listed as or between Banner and Okorafor, but it certainly sounds like Banner will be the right tackle against the Giants. And kudos to him. I mean, his career, I mean, he basically fell out of football, and he came back and has worked his tail off. And so I'm really excited for him to have the opportunity.
Yeah, and we went into this thing thinking that possibly Okorafor was going to be the leader in the clubhouse, that it was his job to lose. If indeed this turns out to be Banner winning this job, it's disappointing to some extent. I mean, obviously not for Banner, and look, you want the best guy out there, obviously, right? But what is this as far as disappointment when it comes to a guy like Okorafor in his potential future?
Sure, you can separate the two between being excited for Banner, just being happy that there's someone they feel good about. They didn't have to feel like they had to kick Fowler back out to right tackle. So that's one part of it. And the separate part is just, wondering, because the thought was if Okorafor could become the right tackle this year, if you lose Villanueva after the season, Okorafor then shifts to left tackle, maybe Fowler kicks back to right tackle. You got some options now. 3 years running, Okorafor had a bad year last year, dealt with a shoulder injury, he got surgery, said he was healthy, feeling good. So there's really no excuses left for Chukwuma Okorafor. And losing that job, although I assume it was a narrow defeat and it could have kind of gone either direction, but that is a bad sign for Okorafor's future, and it's hard to really plan for him being a starter anytime in his Steelers career.
Yeah, that's the troublesome aspect of this, I think. Not
to mention that obviously next year is the last year of his rookie contract.
Right, which would mean you have to go get you. You're probably going to have to go get you a tackle.
Yeah, they're going to be drafting
at least one, maybe two.
Mm-hmm. Right, because Banner's contract is up too, obviously. So will he be able to retain him after a 16-game starter if that's what he ends up doing this year? I don't want to assume that I don't want to assume that Banner has long-term security right now. If he struggles, they'd probably go to Okorafor sooner rather than later. But, Banner's the guy. And I just think about, he was signed August 12th of 2018, 2 days before training camp ended. And the day after, I think on the 13th, that was a really rain-shortened practice. I went back through my notes. So he basically got like 1.5-ish practices of training camp, ends up making the 53, and is now the Steelers starting right tackle. So kudos to him. As much as we talk about, again, all the fun stuff and the personality and the kneel downs and blah, 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 but just as a football player, this guy's made serious strides and can't be happier for him.
And what do you do? Let's assume that he's the guy, and let's assume he plays well over there at right tackle this year. All right, with Banner. He's let the cat out. I mean, it's easy to do. The Steelers gave him the second chance. He's really become a different physique. I mean, he's really became the new Zach Banner. If you will here. What happens though with him? Look, he's bet on himself, and if that bet pays off, people expect to get paid, right? I mean, do you think you can get him re-signed?
I mean, he's going to want to get paid. Mike Tomlin, when Tomlin signed him, or I think midway through 2018, when he was just as a weekly inactive, Tomlin said that he wanted to turn Banner into a $60 million tackle, and that may not be in Pittsburgh, but a $60 million tackle somewhere in the NFL, and that may be the reality for Banner, where he is able to revive his career in Pittsburgh, but get paid in his career somewhere else.
And how do you keep him off a free agent? How do you keep him away from free agency? To start with. Yeah,
obviously you can't tag him.
No, you can't tag him. Tackle, top tackle tag. No, too expensive.
So you'd have to just pay a really competitive price before free agency to try to get him to stay. I mean, I'm sure he would like to stay because of what Pittsburgh means to him, but money's money.
Money is money, and people, some people say, well, how much do you need? You need enough.
You got to get what you can get as an NFL player. His careers are short.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely for sure. So, look, kudos. Look, I speak for you when we want the best guy out there.
100%.
But on top of it now, it is a little bit disappointing that past this year that, it might not be Chiquama and what that means going forward here. And especially now, I mean, does that put more of an onus on maybe trying to get Villanueva, signed to maybe, let's say, a 2-year extension right now,
Yeah,
I mean, even that's going to be a 2-year extension would obviously mean his next year money's that much higher, and how do you accommodate that? And Lord knows, let me tell you, if you get one other guy, whoever it is, and especially if it's Villanueva, signed to an extension in these next 5 days, I guarantee, as my dad used to say, there's no way Juju's coming back. At that point, but does it put more of an onus right now? Does that sway? Look, you pay the guy's market value, and really one decision in the lineup probably shouldn't sway what you do with another player contractually. You have to look at each one, each situation individually. But it's just food for thought when it comes to the tackle position in the Steelers past this year.
Yeah, you're right. It's hard to. If you make those moves because you're scared about other moves that you made in terms of a core four and how that relates to Villanueva, that usually gets franchises into trouble. But you're right. If you don't re-sign Villanueva, if we just entertain that hypothetical, which has a decent chance of happening, then who is your left tackle in 2021? I don't think the guy's on the roster right now.
I don't think he is either, Alex.
And you won't have money for free agency, and so you're drafting a left tackle next year.
Right. Or, I mean, I don't know what you would do. I don't know.
I don't see another path to do it. I mean, you probably sign a cheap vet guy, maybe, hopefully a little better than Jonathan Scott type to compete, and then you go draft somebody and hope someone wins out there.
Yeah, you almost would have to be locked into a tackle first round, I think.
And you're probably picking fairly low in the 20s, and those top left tackles, they don't hang around in the 20s typically.
You are correct, sir.
So I know that Kif Morgan's going to go top 3 probably, so don't even consider him. Anyway, but that's next year's stuff for right now. Zach Banner appears to be the right tackle, and his week 2 matchup's gotten a lot easier. Doesn't sound like he's facing Von Miller, who unfortunately suffered a tendon injury in his ankle, and appears he's going to miss the season.
That's going to be what a blow. Look, Von Miller, premier. I hate to see any guy go down,
sure.
and a premier pass rusher at that now too. So I don't like people circling this and saying, well, now the Steelers have no excuse to lose to the Broncos. One guy, and although that one guy is a tremendous pass rusher, one guy does not make a team. All right. So just stop it with the look. Is it in the Steelers' favor that Von Miller is going to miss that game? Absolutely, it is. But just stop it with the Steelers will run out of excuses or won't have an excuse now if they don't beat the Broncos. Just stop it.
Right. Definitely not an excuse, and also should be worth noting that Bradley Chubb, coming off, I believe, a torn ACL last year, is going to be on a pitch count to start the season. So he's going to play week 1, week 2. But don't know how many snaps he's going to play. But that's week 2 stuff. Talk about that whenever the time comes. Other offensive line news, according to, I think it was Sherry Dulac had it first, that David DeCastro is expected to miss the week 1 opener Monday night against the Giants. Stefan Wisniewski expected to take his place at right guard. So DeCastro dealing with that unknown lower body injury. Tomlin, again, in his press conference was still just kind of vague about it as his typical Tomlin, and saying that he's just excited to get out there as soon as he can, but does not sound like he's going to be available week 1, which is a definite blow to the Steelers offense. Yeah,
this is kind of what I was maybe worried about would happen here, judging, the secrecy, if you will, after he was injured. What was it, a week ago, Friday, I think it was there. But anyway, this is not great. And I just hope now, I hope that Wisniewski is not also on the injury report. But this makes a lot of sense now of why J.C. Hassenauer is on the 53. Because look, you have to have 8 offensive linemen dressed for a game if you want to utilize the 48-man active game day roster, right?
Yep.
So it would make sense for DeCastro not to dress and for Hassenauer to dress to give you the 8. And that, by simple math alone, look, that's why I'm the nerd, that would make you think that maybe Wisniewski's good to go here. And maybe they were just holding Wisniewski out for a couple of practices there because they just couldn't afford anything to happen to him.
True.
They saw enough out of him, wanted to get Dotson some work, wanted to get J.C. Hassenauer some work there. Can't be having your starting run losing the risk of a veteran guy like Wisniewski going down in a meaningless last couple. Maybe, that's me just turning. I had my tinfoil hat on the wrong way. I'm turning it around there. So let's just hope that Wisniewski's not on the injury report when it comes out on Thursday. And if that's the case, then it sounds like Wisniewski would start at right guard for you, and then that J.C. Hassenauer would be active and be your next guy off the bench, if you will.
Well, I wonder. I mean, would it be Kevin Dotson still?
At center. At center.
Sure. Yeah. Well, or would they kick Wisniewski to center, which I probably would. I know you don't like to play musical chairs, but Wisniewski seems like he's got more reps with Ben, and he is the more veteran guy that can help call out protections and stuff, recognize blitzes. So I may be tempted to, in that scenario, kick Wisniewski to center and put, I would assume, Dotson at right guard if Pouncey were to go down week 1.
Well, look, as I said, I think they like Dotson coming out of camp a lot more than maybe you think. So I'm still not totally ruled out, especially if Wisniewski's is banged up. I'm not totally ruling out the possibility of Dotson maybe starting at right guard. I think it's minute, obviously for obvious reasons there. But I think they like that kid, and I think maybe in those few practices once he got over that knee injury there, it just sounds like he maybe turned some heads there.
Yeah, I'm sure he looked good. I mean, he's a ferocious run blocker. I'm sure that was on display, but it's just still a rookie who missed the entire spring, didn't have a preseason game, missed about a week with a knee injury. It's a lot of time missed to come in week 1 to play against alongside a relatively new face at right tackle. I think this is just why you bring in Wisniewski, because he is that capable veteran depth, like in that B.J. Finney type role that can play all 3 interior positions. And while he's clearly an obvious downgrade from David DeCastro, he is competent, and that's kind of just what you're looking for when you got to turn to somebody last second. It's just a competent guy who's not going to make any big mistakes.
Here's what we think we know. DeCastro's going to be inactive Monday night.
Yep. And
J.C. Hassenauer will be dressed.
Right. The rest of the linemen will dress because that gets you to 8.
Right. So hopefully, or it looks like that's what we're looking at. Hopefully DeCastro, Mike Tomlin said he didn't work on a bonus day. We knew to kind of expect that. If DeCastro does anything on the Thursday injury report, it's not going to be much. He'll be listed as limited, I'm sure, and he'll end the week probably as questionable or doubtful if he's not ruled out entirely there. So, that's where we're at in this thing. And look, just you just hope you can get by a couple games at max if that ends up being the case. Without the fact that they didn't throw him on that new kind of short-term IR, because
right.
Guys can go on, guys that get put on IR, the minimum now is three weeks, and that's not very long. So the fact that DeCastro's not having to go to IR right now, it is positive news in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't even thought about that because they did change that IR rule from 6 to 3 weeks. And yeah, the fact he's not on there is a good sign. But this O-line looks a lot different than last year. Last year's starting O-line against the Patriots was Villanueva, Foster, Pouncey, DeCastro, Filer. Now it's expected to be Villanueva, Filer, Pouncey, Wisniewski, Banner. Three of the 5 are in different places at least.
Yeah.
And an early stat of the weird for you, Dave. Last time the Steelers O-line did not start one of Ramon Foster or David DeCastro. Week 3 of 2011 against the Colts. Foster was the backup to Legursky, and DeCastro was still at Stanford. So it's been a long time.
Was that the year that they had all the if you look back on the site, I'm sure I've got that year documented with all the changes. Was that the year that they went through all those offensive line combination changes? What year was that?
2011. I'm not sure. Probably were some injuries that year, but I don't know for sure how many combinations there were in 11.
All right, we'll have to check that.
Yeah, we'll check that a little bit later. We mentioned something else. Oh yeah, you kind of wish you had your offensive line intact for Ben's return, but they'll make do. They really don't have a choice at this point. And the Giants' defense, at least, is not the most ferocious defense they'll face this season. Although that defensive line is pretty good, don't want to discount that entirely.
Right.
All right, Dave. I want to talk about the depth chart and talk about some other practice squad stuff. But before we do that, let's get to our interview with Paul Dehner, who covers the Bengals for The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter at Paul Dehner Jr., and he does a great job, covers the team for a long time, always a good guest to the show. So let's talk to Paul, and then we'll come back.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Wednesday, and as we promised and have been promising, we're having beat writers on from other AFC North teams previewing the upcoming 2020 season. We most recently had John Eisenberg previewing the Ravens for us, and today on this Wednesday, we got our old buddy Paul Dehner Jr., who covers the Bengals for The Athletic, and The Athletic just went over 1 million subscribers. That's the buzz right now going around as of today. And as always, you can follow Paul on Twitter at Paul Dehner Jr. That's Dehner Jr. Paul, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, absolutely. And we know you're busy, so we want to kind of get right after it here and start with, it's been a weird off season, obviously, with the coronavirus pandemic and truncated, no OTAs, no mini camps, those kind of things. You get right into training camp and get after it. So with that, for people that might just be getting back after this thing again, as far as our listeners go, how about give us a 30,000 kind of foot look at what all has kind of transpired with the Bengals here this offseason as far as kind of additions and subtractions. Obviously, the big news, Joe Burrow, the first round draft pick in there, and a lot of people saw that coming. But, outside of kind of the draft picks and all, give us an update on what's transpired with the Bengals this offseason.
They have hope now.
Yeah, they do.
That's a good place to start.
That kid's something.
When you get the quarterback, and you get that guy, you have hope. And there wasn't a lot of that going around before. And that's really kind of the biggest place where it starts, is really everything emanated from the Burrow pick and kind of what he's been since he's got here. And I know we'll get into that. They went out for the first time this offseason and actually were involved and aggressive and spending a lot of money in free agency. It's never been their way. They've been very, Steelers-like in that way. Well, I think both teams use similar models to varying degrees of success. But they have been all about homegrown, draft, develop, retain, and not really spend a lot of money in free agency. But the roster called for it. 2-14 called for it. A new coach that just saw a roster that didn't have anywhere near enough good players to do the right things in the right spots. Basically gutted it, specifically on defense, and went out and spent tons of money. DJ Reader, is now the highest paid nose tackle in football. They went out and got him from Houston. They brought in Mackenzie Alexander and Trey Waynes, cornerbacks from the Vikings, and paid them a bunch of money. They added Von Bell, a starting safety who was with the Saints. They added Josh Bynes, who was a part of their run defense group in Baltimore at linebacker. I mean, they went out, and that they will probably have 6 or 7 new starters on defense this year, mostly with all those guys that they've added. Plus, they drafted 3 young linebackers that are all going to be part of trying to fix that disastrous group. There is it was just a gutting, really, that happened there. And then you add Joe Burrow on the other side, and you feel like they are moving in the right direction. But it was really an offseason like we haven't seen before. And it's created a ton of excitement around here for what it can be. Not necessarily that they're going to be great this year, but that it was really a foundation for what can be something great in the next window of the rookie quarterback contract.
Paul, did they make a mistake maybe at least not trying to do something for one more year with Andy Dalton, especially? I know hindsight's 20/20 here, but I mean, free agency did happen, I think, after, right around, I guess, the start of the pandemic and all like that. But look, Joe Burrow, I mean, obviously that year at LSU, I mean, his tape is absolutely fantastic, especially that final year there. But when you look at a truncated off season the way it is and how hard it is on young quarterbacks coming into the league anyway, Are they doing the right thing with kind of throwing him in there right away, or should they have maybe considered Andy or another veteran to kind of pat it for the first half of his rookie season?
No, this is it. This is the guy.
Okay.
And they know he's the guy, and he's as polished coming in as there's been, and there was never any really doubt. I mean, honestly, they knew he was going to be the starter day one, probably in Mobile in January. Pre-pandemic, I think they knew it. I mean, he was always going to be the guy. There was nothing that was going to be happen to change that. And they keeping Andy Dalton around in particular, I mean, he would have had a contract issue to stick around. Everyone's ready to move on. It would be unfair to Andy knowing that he was going to get pulled at the second that anything would happen. I mean, it was just go forward, move forward with this quarterback who's one of it's not only did he put up one of the greatest college football seasons we've seen, but, he's one of the more polished products coming into the league that can handle this, even in this crazy offseason. And I think that for all those reasons, they just wanted to give him the keys and be ready to move forward with the next era.
Paul, let me ask you, and just sticking with Burrow, since he's been drafted, I wish I could ask a specific question, but unfortunately, because I haven't seen him, just how has been his first camp? And you mentioned handing the keys to him, other than what they knew about him prior to drafting him, and then on draft night, what has given this team the confidence to let Burrow be the starter week one in a pandemic where his first pass as a professional will come week one in the regular season?
Yeah, I think he earned that over the offseason. They like everybody were doing the Zoom meetings and OTAs, and they were trying to get a rookie quarterback to learn the offense. And what that meant was, they would have situations where they had the whole team on a Zoom call, and Zach Taylor was on a separate FaceTime call with an AirPod in Burrow's ear, giving him the calls, and then he's screaming in his parents' basement, yelling out the audibles and everything. Because the biggest thing they wanted to try to find some way to get out of the offseason was everyone to really have a feel for what Joe Burrow, and for Joe to have a feel what it's like to run the huddle, to call things at the line, to make all the adjustments and audibles, and make sure everybody knows that this is his voice, he's the leader. And really it was a chance for Joe to prove he knows this. And that was what everyone said, was that there is no sense of concern that Burrow doesn't have a complete grasp of the offense, how to run things, whether it's calling protections. And some players have talked about how amazed they are at the protections and calls and audibles and hots that he's making already. The stuff that they're like, not only that he's making them, but stuff that I didn't even know they could do. It's sort of what a couple of players said. And he's a son of a coach. I mean, his dad's a longtime defensive coordinator. He grew up in the game. He's kind of been through it and really understands things, and that has showed off. And that's why people have had confidence in him. That's why the coaches have had confidence in giving the keys. It's why the players have confidence in him to watch him go out. And quite frankly, he's kind of torn it up in camp. I mean, he's been really good, and because he seems to have control out there, and everybody knows he put in the work. And that's why I think everybody believes in him and thinks that they can start really fast, even with everything that they missed in what would have been a normal offseason.
And this year, it's kind of like you guys have two first-round picks. You have Joe Burrow, and then you have last year's rookie Jonah Williams, who lost his entire 2019 season, but he's back at the left tackle spot this year, which is huge for that offensive line that struggled so much. How has Williams looked in, I guess, his kind of quasi-rookie season?
Yeah, really good. I mean, he came back in fantastic shape where he really looked like when he was in his real rookie year, he kind of looked like a rookie coming in, and then he really almost reshaped himself this year and looks like an NFL player big time now. And he's been super solid in camp, and it's hard to not be better than what was going on out there last year. I mean, they had every option, guys that were on the street right when the season was kicking off, and guys that had never played tackle before. I mean, when they lost Jonah Williams and Cordy Glenn for the majority of the season, they're down to their third left tackle, and they just didn't have any answers. And not that many teams would once you do that. There's not a lot of great starting left tackles in this league, much less if you got into third strings, and it was just a disaster. So just him being out there alone, much less, he looks very good. He looks solid. I think is a big boost for the entire offense and the way it could potentially operate. I think they're super confident in him, even though he's never taken a snap before. There's almost a sense of, okay, he'll be all right, even though he's going to be responsible for Joey Bosa and Myles Garrett the first 2 games of his career.
Wow, that is a wake-up call. And yeah, Burrow, Williams for snaps right away like this. What's the expectation quickly for the rest of the line? One of the football's worst units last year. Steelers had 12 sacks in the 2 games against them. I know you still have Hopkins there, Bobby Hart's still there, Redmond's gone, but how's the rest of the line looking?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of optimism around Michael Jordan at left guard, and they feel like he really turned a corner at the tail end of last season and then was super focused and kind of took that momentum into his offseason and has looked really good, really dialed in when it comes to this camp. And so I think they feel like their left side can be a really good young group with Williams and Jordan. And then Hopkins is certainly going to be a serviceable center, and he's kind of the mind of the team. He's one of the smartest guys, in the building. So the right side's the issue. I mean, you can't fix it all in one off season when you're 2-14. It's sort of a tough pill to swallow when you realize that you spend all that money and you're still looking at Bobby Hart starting at right tackle, but that's what it is. And at right guard, they went out and got Xavier Su'a-Filo from he came up through Houston and Dallas, and he's certainly a guy who can start in this league. They feel he's an upgrade from John Miller, who was a starter there last year. So in their minds, they feel like they have upgrades at almost every spot, or at least, certainly 3 big ones. We will see. They also have a lot of unknowns at almost every spot. So that's really going to be the determining factor on how good this offense can be and how good Joe Burrow's first year can be.
Rub it into us a little bit about Fred Johnson. There was a lot of consternation about when they let him. He didn't clear. We kind of saw it coming and was worried about it. If he was to get waived early, that somebody would step in there and maybe grab him. He obviously stuck last season there. How is his development comes? And I look at the depth chart now, and I guess they see him more as a tackle than they do a guard overall, and it looks like possibly even making him the swing guy. How's his development come?
Man, they love Fred Johnson, and he had a lot of people talking here last year. At the tail end of the season, they just put him in. They just benched Cordy Glenn because they were tired of the act, and put him in to play left tackle for the last game and a half. He played tackle, and he didn't let up a sack. He was fantastic. I mean, he looked like a natural out there. It was really good, and he's obviously a massive man. And so they put him into a battle with Bobby Hart at right tackle, and he just never quite got going early in camp. And so it never really became much of a battle. But they still like Fred as sort of first off the bench at tackle. And then they got him work at guard, and they started putting him in there, and he looked really effective in there in camp. So I think, you could maybe make an argument he's first offensive lineman off the bench unless it's a center injury. But they really like what his future can be, and he's done nothing but show well since he's been here, and his versatility is nice too. So, I have a feeling, just knowing how the game works and injuries that you should expect, and certainly in this year where you never know where anything's going to come from, we'll see Fred Johnson play quite a bit this year, is my guess. Yeah,
my next question was going to be, look, Bobby Hart. I mean, I've studied him for years and all, and he's had his issues, and T.J. Watt probably licking his lips to get after Bobby Hart again. Do you think there could possibly be a quick hook with Bobby Hart early in the season?
I don't know that. I think he has his backers in the locker room, and one of them has always been offensive line coach Jim Turner. I think it's certainly a possibility if they feel like they just want to change things up and it goes terribly. Bobby Hart, for all his issues, and there are many, he was not awful last year. He was better. And that's not hard to be better than he was the previous year. But, he cut down on a lot of his penalties. He was better in pass protection. He still had left a lot to be desired in other areas. But, I think they will take that right now. If he can be what he was last year, they can learn to live with it. And so I don't know that there would be a quick leash necessarily. There will be one, but I don't think it would be one that if he had a couple of bad games they'd immediately be sitting him down.
When you look at the wide receiver group before we switch over to defense here, obviously A.J. Green back, hopefully. Man, that guy's had a run of it with injuries. He's due to stay healthy for his season. The guy, especially, this looks like maybe it could be possibly his last one in Cincinnati there. Tyler Boyd, also a nice young talent. We're all familiar with him coming out of the pit, being a pit product and all. John Ross, though. John Ross is another one, though, that injuries, man. If that kid, if they could ever keep that kid on the field for a long stretch of time, they'll see what he has. What are your thoughts about this group top to bottom, along with a guy like, let's say T. Higgins in there and Auden Tate, who I think mostly kind of returner capable?
Yeah, I got to say, I think it's a really quite dynamic group for a couple of reasons. And, having a healthy A.J. Green is the ripple effect that really changes everything. We have not seen A.J. Green play next to Tyler Boyd since Tyler Boyd's emergence a couple of years ago.
Wow.
It's been a year and a half. They played 8 games next to each other, the beginning of the 2018 season. It's really the only time we've seen that combination of A.J. Green, real number 1 receiver on the outside, Tyler Boyd, top 5 slot receiver on the inside next to him. What was going on that year? Their offense was on fire. They both were on pace for 1,200 plus yards that first half of the season and 10 touchdowns. I mean, they were really tough to stop. They were 5-3. And in fact, a game that they had Pittsburgh beat here in Cincinnati, if not for the defense, which was criminally awful, allowing Pittsburgh to come down and score the game winner, as I believe that was the cover 0 incident against Antonio Brown. And, you have those things in the background of how dynamic the top can be, because getting those two playing next to each other where you can't double both of them. And then you throw in, in sub-package football, a real dynamic skill set of Auden Tate has looked incredible with Joe Burrow in the red zone in camp. I mean, maybe the best connection of all of them. And so a great red zone weapon, big body weapon who they were impressed with last year. John Ross has the ultimate speed factor with 4.22, and T. Higgins, who, maybe they're grooming to be the next A.J. Green, who was the 33 overall pick and a star at Clemson. You can do lots of different things with those other guys rotating around Green and Boyd. And I think they view that as a chance to really set each up to play to their strengths and not necessarily have to overwork them and have them doing things that they're not as great at. So I think it has a chance to be a real dynamic group, and the depth there does help in case you have injuries pop up again with Green or Ross.
Paul, flipping over to the defense now, and when I think about the Bengals defense the last couple of years, my mind immediately goes to that linebacker room because it has been one of the worst units, maybe the worst unit in football the past few years. I know it's been a mission for Zach Taylor in this front office to solve that. Jermaine Pratt's in his second year. You draft Logan Wilson from Wyoming, Akeem Davis-Gaither from App State, who looked really good at the Senior Bowl. Who are the starters here, and just overall, how does that unit look compared to a season or two ago?
They look young. And, but the good news is they look different, because you certainly don't want to see the same people in there.
For sure.
I mean, they are so bad. I mean, they were so bad. They've been bad. It's been the reason why teams have just carved them up. They couldn't cover. They couldn't tackle. Really haven't been able to do anything. And so the room was completely gutted. They had Jermaine Pratt, who's kind of the key starter there. He's going to be your 3-down linebacker. And they drafted him in the 3rd round last year, and you saw in the last 5-6 games of the year it clicked for him, and he started to look like a real guy. And I think they're really thinking second-year leap for him. He can really help solidify things. And then after that is, in early downs they're going to have Josh Bynes, who's more of a run-stopping guy from Baltimore, and I think they're happy with that. He's more of a veteran leader presence than anything in there. They need to if somebody's got to come along of their rookie. They have 3 rookies: Logan Wilson from Wyoming, Akeem Davis-Gaither from App State, and Marcus Bailey, their 7th round pick out of Purdue, all sort of in this mix there. Wilson will get the first shot at it, I would assume, as the highest pick of all of them, and has been okay, but I mean, he's still a rookie. Mm-hmm. So how much he can do, I don't know. It's still going to be a liability. They're still too young there. They're probably a year away of feeling comfortable at that position at all. It's going to be the problem. It's the biggest hole on the team. It'll be a matter of how quickly those rookies can come along and how much they can hide it with scheme or other things. They have Sean Williams was sort of displaced at safety with the move of signing Von Bell. So the idea being they could move him down to maybe take as sort of a hybrid linebacker type, maybe in more coverage situations, someone with real experience who's played in this league. Had a pick six against the Steelers a couple years ago. So I think there's thoughts that they have options of different things they can do, but inevitably it's going to come down to young guys not playing too much like young guys, and I don't know how much you can count on that.
Right. No, I like the idea with moving Williams down. He's been a tackle machine, always done well against Pittsburgh, so that makes a lot of sense. Looking at the cornerback group, as you mentioned at the top, Paul, he signed Trey Waynes, unfortunately suffers that pec injury. Is he going to miss the whole season? Is there any chance he comes back? And how do they replace that high-price free agent?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason they overpaid for him and gave him 3 years, 42, just because they felt like they needed it. So not having him is definitely a hole. I think he'll be back. Probably, I would guess it's hard to tell when you're talking this far out, but most projections and doctors I've talked to said, you're probably looking at Thanksgiving area. So you'll miss 10 games or so, whatever that ends up being, and maybe you hope to have him for the second half of the season when he gets back, gets his legs under him. They've got a lot on Darius Phillips right now, and he's a very interesting guy in that he was a fifth-round pick 3 years ago. He's kind of had to work his way into any sort of playing time. He's super dynamic with the ball. He came up a receiver. He's got really good ball skills. In 108 snaps last year, he had 4 picks. And, wow. It's ridiculous what he was able to do when given his small chance. And this is on a team that has been abysmal at taking the ball away and picking it off the last 2-3 years. I mean, William Jackson, Drake Kirkpatrick, Darqueze Dennard. I mean, they went almost an entire season in 2018 without a single interception. It took to the last quarter of the last game for a first cornerback interception of the season. That's what it's been around here, not turning the ball. So the idea of a ball hawk playing at corner, even if he has liabilities, he's undersized, he's unproven a little bit, I think is really intriguing. And if he can be that guy, if he can be anything close to who he was in 108 snaps, which had some ups and downs, then they're pretty happy with how they can cover that first half of the season before Waynes comes back. But, that time will tell. It's still such a small sample size. It's hard to know exactly how that plays out or how healthy he can stay over the course of a full season.
Paul, Alex and I were huge fans of Jesse Bates coming out, and he played, I think, very well his rookie season last year. Couple of hiccups seemed like in his tape there. Has he talked much about what transpired or what went right, what went wrong last season?
Yeah, I mean, I think what went wrong for him was the same thing that went wrong for a lot of people the first half of last season, and that was just uncomfortable and not quite knowing what all was going on in a new scheme, and a lot of things going wrong around him, playing from behind, you name it. And he was poor tackling, which I think was part of the concern you maybe had about him coming out. But you loved his ball skills so much that you were willing to overlook it if he could just kind of work on that part of his game. And then the second half of the season, he was much better. He looked instinctual. He had some picks in some big spots, a couple of games in a row, and you saw more of Jesse Bates. I have a story coming out this week talking to, insiders in the organization, whether it be coaches, scouts, whoever, about guys they think are going to take the leap this year. And Bates was mentioned to me a couple of times because of the focus they feel like he's had, what they've seen in him in camp, the progress they felt like he made, getting more comfortable in the season last year. And I think he really can kind of jump to star status a little bit. So I think there's a lot of hope around what Jesse Bates can be this year. But yeah, I think a lot of the defense feeling they'll be better is just the fact of, hey, second year in the same system, which they haven't had around here in, about 4 or 5 years.
When you look at Carl Lawson's another guy Alex and I were high on, but he's another one of those that trouble trouble staying healthy at times. By the way, Paul, Ryan Shazier just announced his retirement on Twitter here, so that's a little bit of breaking news here. But Carl Carl Lawson, I mean, guy, boy, one of the better long arms in the league. But once again, this guy just has problems staying healthy. How's he coming along this offseason, and can he put it all together and stay on the field this year?
I bet if we went down and checked the record of every time we've done these in the preseason, I had talked about, I think Carl Lawson is going to have 15 sacks.
Hey, we love him. We love him. We loved him coming out of college, but just a whole health issue.
He looks the same way this camp that he has looked at every camp. He looks unblockable at times. He's just incredible. But you're right. What has happened is he's just consistently run into injuries. An interesting thing, though, if you really look closely at last year, the Bengals got no pass rush the first half of the season during their 0-8 start and all of that. And Lawson was mostly hurt through it. And even when he was playing, he was not himself, hampered a little bit, and he admitted as much. He said he almost felt like his opening day was the first week off the bye because it was the first time he was really back. And what happened the second half of the season, everything changed for the pass rush. Because Carl Lawson is really a secret engine that makes it all go. People point to his lack of sacks. He is a pressure machine.
He sure is,
he
and that
gets
matters,
back there, and he shifts the pocket into other guys over and over and over again. And what happened? Carlos Dunlap had, I believe, 8 sacks in the last 7 or 8 games, and Geno Atkins got a few that he hadn't had all year. Sam Hubbard continued to pile on, and Lawson himself even had, I think, 5 sacks in the second half of the season. He changed the entire dynamic by being out there and just coming off that edge every time. And so keeping him healthy is kind of a secret weapon that not enough people talk about around here, because he changes the entire pass rush. And, Carlos is who he is at this point. But he is up in his 30s now. Sam Hubbard, an emerging player. We don't know if who he was last year is going to be his ceiling, or if he has another level. We'll find out. But he did have 9 sacks last year. But I think Lawson is part of what makes it go, and it's like a lot of guys on this team. It's just a matter of him staying healthy, and when he does, he's been dangerous. He's been that pressure machine, but you can't count on it.
Yeah, most definitely Sam Hubbard. We saw him take that step forward last season, and it really looks like he's going to be that guy for several years to come here. They added Mike Daniels, a guy that I think's really underrated too, especially for his age. Man, he's got that old man strength still going on for him. With what they've done this offseason on the defensive side of the ball, is that defensive line the best part of this defense?
Probably. I think certainly when you put Reeder in there and Daniels, I think it does change. There's certainly a big ripple effect that comes from Reeder. There's a reason that he was their number one priority in free agency, and where they were willing to go to almost any financial level they needed to for him. They felt like he's the game changer they missed. They too often just couldn't stop the run and were just run over last year. And you guys know what that's like in this division, especially with Baltimore. If you don't have that, it's over. And so I think they feel like that changes things. It can get them in more pass rushing situations where they can trot Dunlap, Lawson, and Hubbard out there in some capacity and let them go eat. So I think it is. The depth isn't probably as good as they would like. They probably like to have one more guy just for rotational sake. But, you certainly like the front line and what they can be. They're trying to get one more year out of Geno Atkins. His numbers have really declined for almost 4 straight years in a row. He's still certainly starting level. He's still Geno Atkins in a lot of ways. He just hasn't been the same guy that he was close to his prime, and it's what you expect when guys get up into their 30s. So they're trying to find ways to get more out of him. They've talked about lessening his snaps so he's fresher when he's out there. They made sure they invested in guys around him, named Daniels and Reeder. A lot of that is surrounded in trying to get a little bit more out of Geno Atkins. And so if they can get efficient play from him, certainly you would view that as their strongest position.
Real quick, as we start wrapping you up, who's going to wear the green dot on the helmet on defense this year, and any notable things going on special teams?
I would assume that would be Jermaine Pratt making all those calls. Maybe spines, but I don't know early on, and we're kind of TBD on that. But Pratt's the one guy that you expect to be out there all 3 downs. What was the second part of the question?
Special teams. Any developments in special teams?
No, they just hope to be the same. I mean, they were DVOA #1 in special teams last year. Brandon Wilson came on as really should have been a Pro Bowl, All-Pro type returner. Really, they found something there in him and that group. And they lost Clayton Fedulum, who was their #1 special teams player, to the Dolphins.
Right.
So they're going to have to find somebody else there. But, yeah, Darren Simmons has done a fantastic job, earned himself a promotion and a title bump this offseason, as kind of a lot of teams came looking for him as a free agent, but the Bengals held on to him. He's assistant head coach now as well. So he does a fantastic job. I think they're just hoping for that group to kind of have more of the same going.
Well, Paul, we can definitely hear the excitement in your voice about the 2020 Bengals. What are your expectations for this team? Sounds like you probably think they're going to sneak up on a couple people here and probably win a couple games. So give me kind of a win total, an expected win total for them, and what you see the 2020 Bengals being.
They're one of the more interesting teams in football. I don't know that we know what they're going to be. They're pretty unpredictable because of a lot of the youth and other new pieces. But I do think they'll win games. They were 0-8 last year in one-possession games. Those, even on bad teams, the law of averages tends to find itself there. That alone, I think, gets you back a few wins. And then the second year for the coaching staff, I think, has made a big difference. And they do feel like they have more of their players in here now. And I do feel like Joe Burrow can come in and be an improvement even as a rookie off of what Andy Dalton has been the last couple of years. And that's with a lot of respect that I have for what Dalton has done and did here. So I have him at 7-9. I think a lot of it depends on the health of AJ Green, his return, him being healthy the majority of the season is how they get to there. If they lose him, it's a pretty crushing blow. But the health of Burrow and Green, if they have that, I think with the pieces that they added on defense, it can be enough to, like you said, surprise some people, win a few games. They're certainly not ready to be in the Steelers-Ravens conversation in this division yet. But, maybe by the end of the season, I think a success for them would be being able to steal a game against Pittsburgh here on Monday Night Football in December, or they close the season at home against the Ravens, showing that they're at that level. So it opens up where you feel like 2021, there can be for real. I think that's what this is about. Season is for them, is about the stepping stone to 2021 and feeling good about the progress of Burrow and the entire team. I think there's a realistic pathway to it.
What's the disappointment line? Is it 5 wins, 6 wins?
Yeah, I think anything less than 6 is a disappointment. They should be good enough to do that at this point. I mean, Vegas has them pretty pegged. I think 5.5, 6. That's right. They need to. They have enough. And again, barring Burrow injury, they have enough that they should be able to win those games. And if not, you have to then start to wonder, do they have their coach? Is Zach Taylor the guy, to pull this team out? Because, you do at some point have to start winning games. And, they last year was about complaining about not having the players they knew or wanted. Well, now you have your players, so there's really no more excuses left, and you have your quarterback. So it's time to win games.
Well, real quick, thoughts on the AFC North. Who's going to win the AFC North, and how far can the Steelers go this year from your view?
I have the Steelers winning the North. Believe it or not.
Wow.
I got to tell you, my guy Mark Caboli turned me because I just wasn't confident in Ben Roethlisberger, and all reports are how good he has looked, and has me think. You take that defense, and you take what Ben can be, and to get that offense back on track a little bit. And I just think that's super dangerous. I think you can expect some regression from the Ravens. I don't expect them to take the league by storm as much the way they did last year, though. They're super impressive and great organizationally. I think Pittsburgh can take this thing, and I think that they're in that mix I think certainly you could see Pittsburgh playing on an AFC Championship weekend. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
Well, fantastic, Paul. We hate to hold you up for like 35 minutes here, but you're so damn good. You're so damn good at what you do, and I think it's obviously the excitement that you enjoy talking about, and you're great at what you do on top of it. So with that, we look forward to having you on a couple of times this year, previewing the Bengals and the Steelers game, and tell us about the Athletic hitting 1 million subscribers real quick.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty awesome. The company is only we were about 4 years old, so to have 1 million subscribers already, it's a pretty awesome day. And we've just totally rebranded our website now. We have a lot more content that's real time. We have a real time kind of breaking conversation with all of our reporters across the whole league, whatever sport, able to kind of react to stuff that's going on the app. So there was just a ton of it. People have worked really long and hard on us redoing our app, and it sort of has launched today, and we crossed 1 million. It just feels it's really exciting to be a part of the team because you have so much insider knowledge across the league with one really some of the top reporters in the business in every single market. It's just fun. It's fun to be a part of, and I'm excited for what the season is going to look like from our standpoint too.
Well, Paul, you're real popular on our website. On our podcast and all, and hopefully the Twitter users, interact with you kindly as well too. I think you get a lot of good feedback from a lot of our serious listeners there as well. And hopefully you'll carve out a couple times this year to talk to us and all. And as always, we appreciate having you on the Terrible Podcast today.
Thank you, Paul.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Again, our thanks to Paul Dehner Jr., who you can follow on Twitter at Paul Dehner Jr. That's DEHNERJR. And Dave, as always, good to have him on the show. And they have, despite a terrible season last year, the optimism remains for Paul, and I can respect that.
Yeah, look, that guy's always in tune with what's going on with the Bengals, and he had a little pep in his step today, this morning when we talked to him there. He's really optimistic. I think he's telling everybody to probably take the over on the win total with them, and that it'll be a disappointing season for the Bengals if they don't win, say 6 games there. I think that's a little ambitious still, but look, kudos to him.
Well, I will take his 6 games for the Bengals if that means his prediction the Steelers win the North comes true. So that's a good trade-off in my mind. Anyway, again, our thanks to Paul. We'll have him later on in the year when the Steelers take on the Bengals. All right, Dave. Steelers have released their first official depth chart. Did we talk about this on Monday? I can't remember if we discussed this on Monday's show or not, but what's your reaction to the first depth chart of the year?
Yeah, a bunch of oars in there, right?
Yep. Rowing a boat. A lot of oars.
That's a bunch of oars. Look, I don't think you can read a lot into this. I think it's going to be interesting to see how some of this plays out. With kick returner and what else was an interesting aspect on there on one of those oars? Help me.
Well, in terms of the backups, Marcus Allen being listed with the inside linebackers is at least semi-interesting with the oar next to UG3.
Yeah.
And then you had Ebron McDonald as the oar, the kick returners, McFarland, McLeod. My guess it'll be McLeod, but it could still go either way. Of course, we mentioned earlier Banner Corridor being the oars. Yeah, nothing, of course, too dramatic there. Benny Snell being listed as the number 2 running back behind James Conner. And so if Conner were to go down, Tomlin said at his Tuesday presser that Conner is this team's bell cow, then Snell would step into that role as kind of the guy, at least in terms of a pure runner.
Yep. That all kind of goes with kind of what we thought might happen. I mean, they've said all off season here that James Conner was going to be the feature back. So,
right.
Nothing has happened. I don't think that makes us think anybody's playing any games here, right? I mean, it's all kind of going according to Hoyle, if you will. And now we just see if a guy like Conner can stay healthy, obviously. But I think they're still going to spell him to some degree,
Sure, they have good depth there. Looking at the outside linebacker spot, okay, so Highsmith is listed as Dupree's backup and Daney's listed as Watt's backup, so that's not surprising the way they did that. Yeah, I think that was The big things again of note here, how much you want to read into stuff, especially backups. Isaiah Buggs listed as the backup nose tackle. Carlos Davis listed as the backup D tackle behind Cam Heyward. I thought that might be flipped, but I'm not going to pay a whole lot of attention to that.
Yeah, first one, we'll see how it plays out. I'm more interested to see who's going to be the kick returner. Do you think?
I'm leaning McLeod just because he's done it before at the NFL level, but I think that you could make a case for both because they're both explosive guys that hopefully provide some juice to a unit that really needs a spark.
I would go with you too, and plus, I have a funny feeling that maybe McFarland will end up being on the inactive list.
Yeah, you had your projection of 5. Do you remember the 5 that you had listed? Or what was it, 5 or 7? Or
I had 5, and that's another aspect we're probably going to be talking about here is the fact that, let's see, I had DeCastro, Joshua Dobbs. We talked about them coming back, right, being back. We talked about Dobbs and Sean Davis being back, right? Okay.
Yeah, on Monday's show.
Let's see, DeCastro, Dobbs, McFarland, Pierre,
Carlos
Davis.
Okay.
Would be my guess. And that's only if they don't bring 2 extras up from the practice squad there.
Mm-hmm. Which I think they still could do because it is just week 1 with the COVID stuff. You're traveling, but we know they're definitely, and Tomlin confirmed this by saying he's not going to give it back. They're definitely going to have 48 active. So that means 8 offensive linemen plus somebody else. That's locked in. We'll see if they call up the 2 from the practice squad to expand it from 53 to 55. But even then, you still can only have 48 active, correct?
Correct. You can only, at max, have the 48 active. Now, you can have as many as 55 on the roster on game day.
Right. And so you could have 5 to 7 inactives depending on what you do.
Right, 5 to 7. The thing that I'm most curious is, and I think teams have to announce this by 4 o'clock the day before the game, that they're bringing up a couple of guys from the practice squad. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would I'm guessing that it's going to function like a regular promotion, in the aspect of how it's reported. In other words, I don't think we'll be sitting here. Let's see. Obviously, the Steelers play on Monday night, so Sunday at 4 p.m. You would think that if the Steelers were going to have the 2 extra, expand to a 55-man roster for game day, they would have to announce or report Sunday by 4 o'clock who those 2 guys are, I would think.
Right. Agreed. And those players you can do that twice with players and be able to send them back down without exposing them to waivers. That can be done twice with an individual this season.
Right. They don't have to terminate their practice. The official term of that is they don't have to terminate their practice squad contract the first 2 times.
Okay.
And they do on the 3rd time. And then once that's terminated, then they would have to clear waivers going back the other way.
And you don't expect them to do that week 1?
Look, this is a learning experience for me.
For all of us.
But unless it's injury related, I'm not expecting. My gut tells me that they're not going to promote 2 this weekend. That's my gut. My gut is that they won't promote 2, and then they will have the 8 linemen active and still dress 48, which would lead to a 5-man inactive list. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're not promoting the 2, so that gives you 5 inactives, assuming you expand to 48, which we know that they will. Yeah, I don't know. I still think there's a chance just because it's partially – there's 2 reasons to do it, to promote the guys in the practice squad. For injury concerns, as you mentioned, which the Steelers have a couple right now with DeCastro and all that, but they do have Haas now in the 53, but also just general COVID concerns. And week 1, you don't really know how this stuff is going. What if there's a false test? Wasn't the New Jersey lab the one that had all those false tests? I don't know how they're testing stuff out there, but they're heading to New Jersey this week with the Giants. So I would just do it, just have an abundance of caution. It's your first time, just because you don't know how this stuff's going to go, and God forbid there are some tests that come up positive or tests where you don't get the result back. It's unclear, whatever the case is. We saw stuff in Jersey that had all those. The Steelers had 6 false tests back in training camp. Guys couldn't practice, and I would just do that just to protect yourself on the road for week 1 as you until you get a feel for how this stuff's going to go.
Right. But
I don't know. I don't know.
What way are you betting? You're betting that they do call the 2 up?
I'm sitting out on the betting table because I don't have confidence enough to do it. If you made me choose, though, I'll be the contrarian and say they do it, and they do promote 2 guys from the 50 or from the practice squad to the 53. That makes it 55. Just as they kind of navigate how this stuff's going to go week 1.
Yeah, that's fair. And plus being on the road,
Right.
I guess would play. All right. Who would be the 2?
I don't know. It's a better question. Probably an offensive lineman, again, just to give yourself O-line depth, and with some injuries there, so maybe a Derwin Gray and someone else that just where they don't have as much depth. I couldn't even tell you a name right now. Maybe one of the veteran guys that they protected, a Curtis Riley, Smallwood, Jay Elliott may be a good candidate. I couldn't give you a great name.
Let me ask you this: if the 2 that if they do promote 2, will those 2 stand a better chance to be inactive or active?
Probably still inactive because, again, I think you just do it to protect yourself, A, against injury, and B, against any COVID stuff that may pop up. So I probably would still be inactive, but you just do it just as you try to figure out playing football in a pandemic.
So in week 1 and the unknown still and kind of getting used to this, you think it's worth a mulligan on using up 2 players' chances or free returns back?
I do, because do we know how this is going to work? Do we know even like the travel? Like Tomlin even said yesterday, they don't even know exactly travel restrictions and the plan and itinerary and all that. Like, this is such a weird environment, obviously, that you just want to cover your base every way possible right now. And especially, again, I don't know how the testing is going to go, if the Jersey lab has kind of figured stuff out, or if they're going to go with a different lab. But I imagine they'll be local to get some of those tests back. And you're in New Jersey where they've had hotspots, especially earlier in the pandemic. You had this false test with this lab. Maybe they're using a different lab. I don't know. But I would just CYA every way possible for week 1.
Boy, we're in the minutia.
Well, we're about to get into more.
We're deep into minutia, are we not?
Yeah, because now we're talking about the protected players on the practice squad, and the Steelers have protected 4 of them. You can protect a max of 4, and they are Jay Elliott, Curtis Riley, Wendell Smallwood, and Henry Mondeau. So a couple of those veteran guys, and then Mondeau. And can you protect? Is there a max on how many times you can protect an individual during a season?
I do not believe that. I don't believe there's stipulations on that. I'm not 100% positive, but I don't remember reading anything on that. I just think the fact that you have to turn in that list every week is the only stipulation there.
Okay, and this means that when you protect these players, they cannot be poached and signed to an active roster by another team.
That is correct.
Okay, so Elliott, Riley, Smallwood, and Mondeau, no surprises there. And yeah, this kind
of let you know what they think about Mondeau. I tell you that.
Yeah, right. They were saying Big Dan, you can take Big Dan, don't take Mondeau. Yeah, they like Mondeau, and he had a good camp 2 years ago in 2019. And it sounded like he had a good camp in 2020, and that's a guy to watch.
And I think I don't know what it says about the rest of the guys. Smallwood, I mean, you got 4 running backs, but they must think that if they did expose him, that he could probably get. A team would come calling for a running back like him with some experience there and all. So interesting to watch the minutia play out here when it comes to that stuff. And now that'll be something I'm sure that we will report every, I guess, Tuesday now, right? Is the players that the Steelers choose to protect on their practice squad.
All right, there you go. Do we mention also that, obviously we just mentioned Smallwood, but he was signed to the practice squad. Duck Hodges signed back to the practice squad, so that rounded out that group. Did we talk about that on Monday with Duck and Smallwood circling back?
I don't remember, but we just did.
Yeah, so there you go. All right, so we talked about all that.
What about Colquitt? That's new.
Oh, yeah. Well, we kind of touched on it. We didn't know for sure what was happening, and I apologize. There's been so much happening lately in Steelers land. They have a new punter. Dustin Colquitt has officially been signed. Jordan Berry released. And so, Dave, what's your thoughts on that switch there?
It looks like you might say, well, we haven't seen the contract yet, but I bet it's a minimum salary benefit contract. We just don't know if there's going to be a tiny 130 or whatever signing bonus involved in it. But it looks like you're going to save right at $1 million in salary cap space by making that change, if indeed that's the case. Overall, just salary cap aside, look, you get an experienced guy. He's instantly the second youngest player, second oldest player on the Steelers roster behind Ben Roethlisberger. Now that's I don't know if that qualifies for stat of the weird Alex Kozora category there. He's been around the block, right? And you would think the holding and the consistency. Look, if he's just even more consistent than Barry was Barry wasn't totally awful last year, but there was a spell that he went through, I think, later on in the season that gave you concern.
The last month was as bad as it's ever been for a Punter. It was a mess.
But the first part wasn't, and that was enough for them to call him into question, and I agree with it. Look, anywhere you can, especially specialists and as far as how cheap as those guys normally go, as long as it doesn't disrupt the whole holding, what goes inside of a kicker's head aspect of it, I'm good with it. And if they're going to get more consistency with a guy like Colquitt, and then you got the whole left-footed aspect, which is interesting. Bill Belichick, I think, is a big fan of that kind of stuff there too. So with that, I don't have any issue with it. I think he's a 1-year Band-Aid, and it wouldn't surprise me, however, if Colquitt comes out and stumbles or whatnot, that we could see maybe a merry-go-round at Punter the rest of the year.
Happened before.
I'm not saying that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You obviously hope it doesn't happen, but it would not surprise me if it did.
That'd give me some real Zoltan Mesko kind of vibes over here.
What'd you see exactly? And what'd you see on the tape?
Yeah, I think that the word that you used and what Tomlin talked about is consistency, a high floor, and to me the word I've used is low variance. And you don't want a lot of variance with a punter. Barry wasn't terrible. He was an average to below average punter, but there was just a lot of highs and lows with him. And you don't want to ride a roller coaster with a lot of positions, but especially not your punter. And so Colquitt, his hang times are consistent, his placement's consistent. The left-footedness is definitely a nice little benefit. A little question about the holding in terms of how that relates to Boswell, but Colquitt's been a holder for, I assume, 15 years now, so I imagine he's probably pretty good at it, and that won't be much of an issue. And Barry had a bad hold last year that led to a Boswell miss, so that's worth pointing out as well. I just think overall, you look at some of the numbers, and this is a unit-wide thing, but you look at the lack of return yards allowed by Kansas City over the last 5 years, that kind of tells me that the hang times are good, the placement is good, and that, to me, in a year where special teams has so much turnover, so much potential sloppiness, the best way to not allow big punt returns is just to create a lot of fair catches. And Colquitt seems to do a good job of limiting returns and things like that. So again, just the more consistent, lower variance type player. This is an upgrade. It is not a dramatic upgrade, but it is an upgrade nonetheless. And so I'm fine with the move.
They can't hurt you if they can't return them.
Yeah.
And same with kickoffs too. An interesting aspect here, I guess something to think about maybe, Alex, and I don't know if they'd burn it to the whole. You talking about calling a guy up from maybe they'll call up a guy from the practice squad. There is seem to be some rumbling about Corliss Waitman and his ability to be a kickoff specialist. Would that be a guy that you consider pulling up? Because look, I mean, even if you burned up his back and forths, how many?
No one's poaching him.
No, is anybody going to poach him, or is he in jeopardy of being on somebody else's even practice squad or 53-man roster?
No, I don't think so. I just don't know much about his kickoff specialist ability. I mean, I think Boswell is capable of booting it deep into the end zone, out of the end zone if you ask him to. So if he can do that, if you have questions about that, then maybe you would turn to someone like Waitman. I'm open to that idea. If you sign someone like real dedicated kickoff specialist dude, that makes sense. But yeah, to the overall point, to win on special teams,
would you be surprised if that happened?
Yeah, I'd be surprised just because I don't think they're going to have Waitman come up week one, and I don't even know where he's at. I know he's done some kickoff specialists, but I don't know exactly how good he is, if he's really better than Boswell. And for week one, I'm just going to roll with Boswell being my guy. But to your point, yeah, the best way to eliminate these potential for returns is just to not even allow a return. So boot it out of the end zone, create good hang time, some good directional punts. That's kind of the best way to ease your way, so to speak, into special teams.
Yeah, they can't hurt you if they can't hit you.
Right. So I'm happy with the Colquitt move again. Not a substantial upgrade, but I think definite an upgrade in just the consistency factor is the biggest reason I think to sign him. I just don't know. I don't know why they waited this long. I mean, Colquitt's been a free agent forever since April when the Chiefs cut him. Why wait until?
Maybe he was waiting to see if he got a better.
I guess
maybe he was just going to wait out all of training camp to see if there's an injury or somebody just wasn't performing well, and maybe he could get top dollar that way.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, maybe he just didn't want to go to training camp. 38-year-old didn't want to have to deal with that. But punters don't do a whole lot in training camp, so I don't know. But I do think it's an upgrade.
All right. Look, salute to what they've been able to do. This just goes back to the aspect that the 53-man roster predictions that we do immediately after the draft and really any stop along the way are nowhere ever going to come close to matching what the final week one result is, because once again, the initial 53-man roster from cutdown day is already 3 different, right, than what it was Saturday.
With the Dobbs and Davis and then Colquitt. That's why we place emphasis on the word initial 53, because it rarely stays the same.
Right. When we're trying to predict 53-man rosters throughout the offseason, we're trying to predict the initial one, I think. But even then, the odds of hitting that just kind of. Look, I mean, who's if we want to know more about the DeCastro injury and had a firmer grasp maybe of the new active rules and all like that, paid more attention. Maybe you make the decision to put Hassenauer on there, that way there. But I didn't see that one coming.
No, I didn't either. By the way, quick random Steelers note: the Detroit Lions have signed Kareth White to their practice squad, listing him as a running back / wide receiver. So,
interesting.
Little note there. Dave, Mike Tomlin, haven't even touched on that. Had his press conference yesterday. I mean, we kind of have tied into his comments and some other topics we've discussed, but anything else from Tomlin Tuesday you wanted to touch on?
Oh, Lord, that seemed like it happened last week now.
It really does.
Help me out here. Let me pull up the transcript here.
Pull it up. I mentioned James Conner, of course, being the team's bell cow and guys we referenced earlier in the show. He talked about the Giants. Obviously, he starts every press conference with a very detailed report on the opponent and talking about Saquon Barkley and how their goal is that he's the number one goal to contain and slow down for that Giants offense. Talking about how they try to watch a variety of tapes because it is hard to get a read on the Giants because they have a new coaching staff, new coordinator. I mean, it's a whole new team in that aspect. So you can't really watch last year's Giants tape to get a great feel. So they watch some Patriots stuff with Joe Judge. They watch a lot of Cowboy stuff with Jason Garrett and the O-line coaches from Dallas as well. So trying to get a read on the Giants is a bit of a challenge, all things considered.
Yeah, and it looks like he evidently did, the typical Tomlin fashion, open up that press conference for the first 10 minutes, make the Giants sound like Super Bowl contenders. Here, he always does a great job of that. We already talked about. I thought that the interesting things to say about Dobbs and the athleticism and having that one extra trait, if you will. That's one thing that I've kind of hung my hat on since Dobbs has been signed. He obviously talked about the second year guys and expecting to jump out of him. He mentioned Benny Snell by name again, Justin Lane, Isaiah Buggs. What else at the end in there? Talked about prepared. Got into the whole minutia about the roster and all like that, and how he's not going to give those picks back. I think the only thing hard to do there is judge the context of, was he talking about 48 guys or was he talking about 55 guys?
It does seem like he was talking more about the active roster. At first I thought he was talking about the potential practice squad call-ups, but it did seem more about the expansion to 48.
All right, and obviously not much of an injury report, and hopefully that there was a reason behind that. Just DeCastro being the. Let's hope DeCastro's the only guy on that thing there, and really that's all he had to say. Previewing the Giants, he talked about the additions of Davis and Dobbs and Colquitt. James Conner and distribution. We already covered that top of the show, so I think we've got the Tomlin aspect of it covered.
Just real quick with Davis, it was interesting. He was brought up Davis and talking about why they re-signed him, and his first the first point he went to was special teams. He says he's been a quality punt team player, quote, been a quality kickoff team player, and so that may have been as much a reason to sign him, it appears, as the defensive aspect and the backup safety aspect of things. And for a team with a lot of turnover on special teams, a lot of unknown there, to get some known guys like Sean Davis probably gives you a little bit more confidence and comfort heading into the season.
Four total special teams tackles so far for the Steelers during his career, which isn't a lot. I don't remember Sean Davis being that stellar on special teams. Maybe I'm forgetting.
Nah, he's been okay. He's not a core guy. He's played between 100 and 200 snaps, but he's been a wing on punt. So he's probably going to be Derek Watt at, what would that be, right wing, and Davis at left wing on punts, and Dangerfield as the up back is my guess is how things are going to look Monday night.
And by the way, kudos to Dangerfield. Was there ever a question in any of our heads that Dangerfield would make the 53-man roster at any point this offseason? And answer that one first.
No, the only question was just whenever we knew they were signing Sean Davis, who was going to be the odd man out. But Dangerfield certainly has made his stamp and his calling card on special teams and being the up back, the quarterback of that unit, and he's done that role very, very well.
And not only that, he was voted special teams captain.
Right, and I should mention that. Who was other captains were what? Heyward, Ben, missing someone else?
Pouncey.
Right.
And Watt.
Watt, okay. So Heyward and Watt defense, Pouncey, Ben offense, Dangerfield special teams. So, yeah, that's a really good group of guys.
Okay, where to now? Ben, I don't think we either one have a good grasp of what all Ben had to say, but it wasn't much. He wouldn't reveal who the tackle was. He wouldn't reveal DeCastro's situation there. Talked about nerves and all. And also part 3 of that docuseries was released this morning. Really, really good. Shows the rehab process, him beginning the rehab process and going through that. So if you haven't seen that yet, we've got it up on SteelersDepot.com, part 3 of 4 of that series, and of course the finale will be released next Wednesday. Was there anything else? He talked a little bit about the motion. It was asked about how this motion will play into things, and he obviously didn't want to give away the game plan, but talked about how motions and shifts tend to put defenses in a tizzy and that kind of stuff. I think he was asked about 2 tight end sets. Anything else we missing from that?
No, not really, but I started a project late last night, just a real short one, that just kind of looked at some of the pre-snap stuff with Ben, the first 6 quarters of last year. And there's some motion, but that offense just seems so vanilla, so stagnant, so low energy pre-snap, and I think we're going to see a noticeable change with that this season.
I do too as well, and I think as the season goes on, I think Anthony McFarland can become a part of that, of using him. Look, we saw even without Matt Canada there at Maryland, them do a little bit of that. And if you go back to a couple years ago, you really saw a little bit of how they used McFarland. Sometimes they got the ball in his hands, sometimes they didn't, but making sure to move him around.
All right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, feels like I'm missing something. But I guess that's just me feeling that every week here. Let's go to Darren Boyer. He writes in 2021 cap optimism. He says, "Hi, David, Alex. It seems fans are panicking at the thought." Fans panic? Wait, what?
Never.
What? It seems fans are panicking at the thought of a $175 million cap for 2021 due to teams losing in approximately $6 billion combined if there are no fans at the games. But I'm curious to know if you see any reason for optimism that the cap number will come in higher based on the following. 1, teams are working to get fans in seats this year, so we will see the league recover a decent chunk of the projected loss this year. Number 2, the majority of 2020 season ticket holders have already paid for their 2020 tickets and will simply add the credit to next year's tickets, meaning that 2020 ticket sales are hitting the ledger, which is good news for the cap in 2021. Number 3, sure, that means you'll be kicking the can down the road and the 2021 ticket sales number would then take the hit, but keep in mind that the broadcasting rights are set to expire in after the 2021 season. The league will already be in negotiation for what should be an astronomical deal for 2022 and beyond. Think about how much Amazon, ESPN Plus, YouTube TV will be willing to bid. Because of this, owners in NFLPA should be able to easily borrow against 2022-2024 cap and keep increasing the cap on schedule. If this is the case and the 2021 cap number comes in right around $200 million, would that change your outlook on some of the Steelers' unrestricted free agents? First, Darren, good job on the 3 items that you listed there. Well thought out when it comes to your bullet points and why they're. Look, I think people should know my thoughts on this by now. I think $175 million is, man, and it is. It's worst case scenario. At no point at this point right now do I have a belief that the cap will be $175 million next year. Where do you weigh in on that?
I obviously am not as in tune with this stuff as you are. I think it's going to be higher than 175, but it's a better question to really ask how much higher than 175. I still
go by, I don't think, at worst case scenario, I think this league is going to do, NFL and the NFLPA are going to do everything under the sun possible to at least try to get this cap to stay flat. Okay? At $198.2 million. And I think a lot what Darren just laid out there plays into that aspect. Even if it means some last-minute negotiation and all with some of this other stuff, as far as borrowing. I just can't envision – I mean, I can. Look, the long and short of it, I don't think it's going to come in $175 million. B, I think it's got a better chance of being closer to $198.2 million than I do it coming in at $175 million. And I think really Darren's laid out some good reasons of what might work. And the other aspect of it is I just think the two sides will negotiate it not moving much from $198.2 million there. And I think with everything that Darren just listed, I read off kind of quickly there, I think there should be a little bit more optimism involved. Now, look, we don't know what the books say, and all. We're going to definitely be playing this by ear. It'll be interesting. As more and more fans are let into stadiums, I think if that's what happens, I think that's going to be room for a lot of optimism, and hopefully that begins around, what would you say, week 3, week 4?
Well, I know there's a couple of teams that are doing it week 1, but still the teams that are allowing fans in, it's like 5,000 to 10,000. It's such a small percentage.
But that's initial, right?
Yeah, initial, but there's no guarantee it's going to go up. If anything, you could argue that it may go down if we get into the winter and this thing gets worse with the pandemic. I don't know. I think the second point that Darren made is the strongest about how season ticket sales have already kind of been cashed in, so to speak. A lot of people are just kind of deferring them to next year, just still paying it and getting that credit for next season. That I think is the strongest point. To the third point, that's a good point, but that does not help you now. The future stuff about broadcast deals and all that of it, and then the first point about fans being let in now, that's true, but it is still such a small number, a small percentage that I don't know how much it's going to move the needle.
Darren, good points. I wish I had a better crystal ball when it comes to this kind of stuff. I mean, I'm trying to go off of what industry experts and this kind of stuff are telling me as well. When it comes to this, and then using my best kind of experience and deductive reasoning of why I don't think they would want it to dip much, but and the ability to work kind of this stuff out on the fly. That's where I'm at, and in my belief that it will be closer to $198.2 million than it will be $175 million. We'll see if I'm wrong. Now, the end question he has here is if this is the case and the 2021 cap number comes in right around $200 million, would that change your outlook on some of the Steelers' unrestricted free agents? Yes, but here's the thing. If you don't get these guys signed in the next 5 days, how are you going to prevent them from hitting free agency? You're going to still have even at a cap number at 200, you're still going to have a long laundry list of things that you've got to do. I did this last night, and this is rough, guys, so bear with me here. Just filling out, and this is not knowing what Cameron Heyward's, this does not count Cameron Heyward in this, okay? I've still got to find out his number. Without Cameron Heyward, I have the Steelers' rule of 51 number being, and this fills in all minimum salaries underneath the 33 guys that they got under contract, okay? So this is bare minimum rule of 51 without Cameron Heyward, all right? They're right at $200 million in cap numbers spent, okay? So let's take Darren's case here and say, okay, $2 million, they're right even with the cap at $200 million. Okay. Now let's, what am I going to do about Heyward's number? Well, the team right now is, let's say they roll over. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cancel out the rollover. I'm going to say the rollover cancels out whatever Heyward's post restructure number is. Is that fair?
Sure.
All right, because, I mean, you're going to restructure him down, probably get him around, I don't know what the number's going to be, $10, $11 million after restructure, and I'm throwing that out there. And let's say the rollover's $10 million or whatnot, so that cancels him out. So I've got him back to even right there. All right?
Okay.
And this is, man, you want to talk about looking into way out there and doing some crazy.
I'm just sitting on the plane. You're flying it.
You want to talk about some crazy looking out into the future kind of stuff right now. So, yeah, I mean, if the number comes in at 200, and let's say you're right at 200 now, it sure started smelling a lot better, didn't it?
It did, but only get you so far with so many guys to retain.
Right, and look, you can extend Bend. You can extend DeCastro, save a little bit of money. You can make a couple of cut Vance, cut Vince Williams. There's another $9 million for you there, and already I've got you $9 million under. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, this is way out there right now. That's all based on Darren's $200 million cap number coming in. Now, the only question is can you keep these guys from hitting free agency from the end of the season until the start of the new league year? And it's still going to be tough. And if a lot of these guys hit free agency, most of them are going to be gone, period.
Right. Is there a chance, though, the market just overall could be depressed because a lot of teams will have these cap issues? There will be some teams who will have a lot of cap to spend, but there'll be half the league just trying to deal with their own guys like Pittsburgh is. And could that bring some numbers down on the open market?
Yeah, but there's still going to be a couple of teams out there that hold the eyeball, you know, and cap space. So. Right. And, the whole floor rule and all like that, some people are going to be willing to overspend on. Yeah, look, Dupree's gone. I don't care what world you're living in. Dupree's gone. Juju, if he bounces back like we think he's going to, is his market going to be depressed?
Not significantly so. Probably not. I don't know what other free agent receivers are out there. So yeah, point taken there.
I guess in a depressed market, it would tend to favor you more maybe with a guy like Sutton and Filer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's less about the stars because stars are always going to get paid, but more about the mid-level guys that may not be getting. There won't be any money left over after the stars are scooped up.
All right. Did I answer that all right?
I think you did. I think you did a great job of that. It's just so hard to predict. We're all along for the ride and just seeing and waiting what happens.
All right, let's move on to Mark Urbaniak, right? Saying, hi, Dave and Alex. Thanks for all you do. I'm happy. So happy. We're up to 3 podcasts now and a live stream pointing to Alex is going to wear me out, man.
And thank you to everyone who was at the live stream Monday. Had over 100 people. It was a really good crowd on here.
Absolutely. By the way, he says he loves the ad-free version. I was wondering if there will be a way to stream every NFL game this year. I'm confused with YouTube having access to NFL Network. Does that mean through YouTube I can watch every Steeler game live every week? Probably not. DirecTV still has a hand in all this right now. So that, you're not going to be, unless you do things that you're not supposed to do, like have a overseas Game Pass account and use something that makes you pretend like you're overseas. I didn't tell you how to do this, okay? Don't attach my name to this, but that's really going to be the only way that you guarantee yourself, other than being in a bar that shows all the games, via DirecTV. That's the only way you're going to be able to do it, I think. Because of DirecTV's hands in this. Now, I know if you live somewhere where you can't have a satellite, I know you can go to the DirecTV website and sign up for a package that lets you watch this stuff online, but you have to enter in your address and all. If they view you as being satellite capable, then you have to go that other route there, if that makes sense.
Satellite capable. Very Tomlin of you.
There you go.
We are satellite capable.
He goes on to say here, by the way, I will never forget the day when we traded. What's funny at the end there?
I'm just thinking satellite capable. I'm just thinking Tomlin, like at the first start of Zoom meetings this year. All right, guys, we are satellite capable.
All right. At the end, Mark says, by the way, I'll never forget the day when we traded for Minkah Fitzpatrick. And Dave, you said to Alex that this means we will not have a first-round draft pick. Alex said very sadly that this will be the worst offseason ever. Little did we know.
Yeah. I was prediction I wish I was wrong about.
Yeah, the thing, too, is, man, Alex, I hope it's obvious that Alex and I not only love football and love Steelers football, we love the process that goes along with this throughout the year, too. That means the draft, the pre-draft, the combine, all of it, and we were robbed of a lot of that this year. So, yeah, I wish you didn't get that one right. Let's go here to Bryce. Bryce, we're deep into this thing, aren't we, Alex?
We're over 2 hours, I think. We are in the soup today, Dave.
All right. Let's table a lot of these others, because we had a 35-minute interview with Paul there. That's fantastic. So let's not make this thing too long. We'll try to get to some of these other questions on the Friday show there. So with that, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kazara. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. We're on Instagram now, too. We've got Tyler taking over that account. Hit us up, Steelers Depot, on Instagram, and follow us there as well. He'll be doing some things with that account there. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, if you want an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. For $25, you can have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. A lot of people are taking advantage of that. What do you got? We got some previews coming up of the Giants game on the site this week, right?
Yeah, that won't come, though, till Monday because it is a Monday game. Usually they come on Friday, but we'll have our scouting reports. I don't know how we're going to do it, trying to scout this team, but those will come Monday from, who is it this year? Tom, Josh, and myself.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy, the amount of content. And look, I'm talking to you guys right now, and I'm already behind of what we got to get done on this Wednesday here. Obviously, the Steelers' first injury report of the week will be out after Thursday's practice. On top of it, the season kicks off on Thursday. I'll have my season predictions up, blah, blah, blah. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.